And now we're moving on toward... This is one of the most beloved episodes of the show. But I'm going to have to just say it now. This isn't one of my favourite episodes of the show. I like it okay. It's a bit overly sentimental for me. I think it's a bit cheap. I hate the fact I was vocally complaining about the transition of like the toy spaceship being there's the fact that the spaceship being there and like little baby Fry wants to go to space and he will one day and then he rips the toy off and throws it out the window and then it transitions sort of Hackney 2001 style to the Planet Express ship about to land. I can't deal with that. Like and I'm not gonna lie, like this occurred to me now and it's like I'm not saying that they had to do otherwise, but I do think it's a bit... I don't know how much I can get behind this emotional story about Fry and this character that we've only really been introduced to just now.
Yeah, and his brother.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh, okay, I guess this is a thing now. And it's like, it just feels a touch contrived to me. It's not effective in like a sort of objective A to B cause and effect sense. Like as a script, if it was submitted to me as a script, I'd be like, oh yeah, it's pretty good. I don't think it's particular. It's got some funny moments, none of them really relating to the plot. Like, it's not a funny premise, I mean.
Sure.
And it's just... I used the song at the end, and it's such a hackneyed song. Like,
oh, well, that's because of the...
Yeah.
He keeps the... It's like, I don't know, it's a contextual joke or whatever.
I guess, yeah. And
like, if it was just randomly used, then it wouldn't be as... But it's like the payoff to the setup.
Yeah. It's just... something about this thing, I just...
Because that also is, like, it's an interesting thing. I always wondered, because that specific scene at the end is, like, a very beloved scene. And it is, like you mentioned, effective, like, genuinely emotional. But I think it works where it's not too saccharine. Like, they managed to balance it out because there's humor around it. Like, Bender's joke about, like, hey ladies, I'm taken, when he grabs he's like grave robbing.
Yeah.
There's like a sort of a morbid humor all around.
Yeah, it's a good thing that's there at least.
And then the sort of, that song being used as like a, sort of contextual joke or whatever. If it was like later on when they do this sort of stuff, it's played out in a saccharine way with no humor attached to it. So it's like, you just watch it and it's like the worst parts of like the sort of, the conclusions to moral stories in like King of the Hill or something.
Yeah, those suck.
Those are often very saccharine and there's no humor around it,
Yeah, and a lot of, when King of the Hill does it, I have to say, like, a lot of like...
And I'm a big King of the Hill fan.
Yeah, it's a very good show.
This episode, for like one of these cartoon sitcoms, it manages to do it well. Like maybe the sort of overarching sort of belovedness of this is a bit much or like a bit outspoken. Though personally, I have always liked this episode. It's not my favorite episode, but I might maybe put it like toward the end of a top 10 list at its highest. You know what I mean? Number 9 or something.
Wow, really?
That sort of thing. Yeah.
Oh, this wouldn't even approach my top 30.
Interesting.
No,
okay.
Not even close.
Because I do think that it's
I don't think it's one of the better episodes of season 3 even.
No, it's not the best of season 3. I would agree with that. It's
season 3's got a little streak toward the end there, which is nuts.
But yeah, like you said, it does just introduce sort of his brother as a new character. Though I guess it sort of works as well because this is maybe because it's also the sort of really the first time they go back to Fry's past, as opposed to unless you like with his family.
Michelle worked better for me because she'd been introduced before.
Yeah.
I like that episode more than that's not a sentimental episode by any means.
No, that's
I Wait for a Cryonic Woman, which is I think slightly underrated.
That's a good episode. Yeah,
I think that's one of the better episodes of season 2 in that context. I would say.
But at least what I was sort of trying to get at is that like when Fry first goes to the future, like the show sort of. Because, right at the start of a sitcom, in the first episode, he's like, everyone I've ever known or loved has died. Woohoo!
Yeah.
I love that at the start of the show, but it does make sense that by, say, like a season 3, they're trying to get a bit more in depth with the characters, so that they do expand it a bit, and so you like open up the thing that was started there with the, the idea of Fry's loved ones and all of them being gone, and finally it does come back around to actually mean something. So I think this episode's good for that as well. Like, if it came in like the first or second season, it'd be way too
I
soon.
agree. It's paced well in the context of... And I do like that they waited. They had like a whole... Even though I have sometimes some critical things to say about the episode priorities of season 2, I do appreciate that they waited till season 3 to get really in-depth with Parasite's Lost, this...
Yeah.
Some of the other... Day the Earth Stood Still.
Yeah.
Stupid, excuse me, etc.
Yeah, it feels a bit more sort of earned. Like, it's not just a case of like forced characterization, which maybe shows like Futurama in conjunction with episodes like you just named in this one. Sort of this idea that these animated sitcoms have to have these like moments of characterization, and shows will be doing it in the first 2 seasons, like even in the 3rd episode of a show, and it's just like, why is this happening? It's you haven't even like properly introduced the mechanisms of your show's comedy yet,
Yeah.
and you're already doing character drama.
What I'll say about like the Fryrish, like positively compared to like, it doesn't have that kind of unlikable quality, which the word I was looking for was kind of conjunction of 2 words I was looking for earlier with King of the Hill, was kind of self-appreciating. Like, they get these like sentimental episodes and they'll be like, oh, isn't this nice? And it's just like, who thinks like that about something they created? Like, it's so pompous.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't know. I almost like slightly irked, but I'm not really necessarily when The Simpsons do it on the odd occasions they do in the first 8 seasons, like Mother Simpson or a couple other instances. But yeah, this doesn't suffer from that as such. I feel like the writers, if anything, it's sort of undercooked.
A little bit.
Rather than like so self-important.
Yeah, well, the best stuff is sort of... Because the episode is not trying to be overly sentimental. It's maybe just like...
Like, it lends itself to that, but it's not...
It's only 1 or 2 scenes. Like, even when the flashbacks... A lot of the time it is just sort of, ripping on the time where Fry grew up. He's doing break dancing, or it's like early 80s New York basketball. That sort of stuff, right? And, I guess it feels a bit earned because the relationship between him and his brother, like the sort of his brother ripping him off, that feels like a sort of realistic thing as well.
Oh yeah, sure.
Especially for just like a little like simple like melodrama point. All that stuff sort of works really well. But yeah, if this episode wasn't as funny as it was, I could see like not liking it as much. It's just all the jokes in it I really like as well. Like infamously the documentary or like mockumentary thing that they do, That's like one of my favorite lines in the show, even, with the rock guy.
Yeah.
It's a number one record.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like the Howard Stern is overrated joke. There's a bunch of like funny one-liners in this one. I guess less so than the last episode, the Christmas one, which was all sight gags. Most of this episode is just like one-liners and stuff like that.
One of my favorite jokes in this episode is a sight gag and Fry gets run over by a lizard.
Oh, that's a good one, yeah.
I really like that.
The jaywalking thing.
But it's like, it's just sort of, I feel like almost like the episode, it's a relatively unpretentious take on this sort of like premise, like, oh, we'll do a nice little episode about Fry's relationship with his older brother. And it just sort of like is that, and I guess it doesn't really like that's what I mean by inferring it or saying it was cheap earlier, but it doesn't. It just like it's such an easy topic to be emotional about, and they just do the bare. It doesn't go overboard like some of the King of the Hill episodes might, but it just like it kind of fulfills that, and then it's like kind of job done. And even though I like Jurassic Park more than this, at the end of the day, that is a little bit of like, well, of course, like the dead dog is gonna like make people sad. It's like a bit too, like, it's not a revelation, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
However, they do have that interesting sort of, what's his name, Hachi, sort of element to Seymour's story, which I think does lend it to like more of an interesting concept than like Fry assumes. Like if the episode was just about, like if the episode didn't have that and Fry just kind of put the dog away, the petrified corpse away, and just like he's like, whatever, and that was that, and it's just about like a dead dog. That wouldn't be that interesting, but the Hachi component makes, I think, that episode more interesting than just the basic, the dog died sort of cliche.
I was going to say the exact same thing about this episode, at least when I was younger. I liked that it had the 7-leaf clover thing that hung that whole simple like family melodrama around it. Like the idea of the 7th leaf clover. I think it's pretty just fascinating, right? That Fry had this like mystical clover sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I do like that. Well, at least as a kid, I was like, I was sort of disappointed that you thought the episode was going to go in the direction of like what'll happen with the 7-leaf clover thing.
Yeah.
And then I thought the sort of more grounded, just like moral fable. It was sort of interesting that it sort of just it didn't overutilize the clover. It just came back to being like that was the sort of key. I don't know. I guess the sort of Deus Ex Machina of that little plot line, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I thought that was interesting. At least it doesn't get sort of like, how Futurama episodes can sometimes get a bit too outlandish. Like it was an example of sort of like reining it back. I guess maybe in like a Pixar sort of sense. We were very sort of like effective at that.
Yeah, I think Futurama can go too far. When I think of Futurama going too far, I think of like some like season 2 instances where they're just like doing weird for its own. Like I think of the honking, maybe that Hermes episode.
Yeah, you could imagine the 7-leaf clover turning into like the honking in season 2, right?
A lot of newer, kind of post season 5.
Whereas
the movies.
It has that zany idea, but then uses it well. Like, there's a sort of conclusion to, I guess, Yancey, the character that the episode just invented, it's like redemption arc or whatever.
Yeah. No, like it's not. No, I do appreciate it for what it is, but I also sort of like get irked by it for what it is. I don't think it like rises into like really classic territory. I just think it's a touch basic, to be honest. And like that's just me. I get that like a lot of other people have very strong feelings about it. But like to me, like this isn't what excited me about Futurama then or now. Like, I mean, I probably liked it more as a kid just because it was just an episode of the show. But now it comes back to like, I've watched these things so many times and like what brings me the most, what awes me the most to this day. This isn't that. This isn't, like to think about it, it's the Godfellas with Roswell or Time Keeps on Slipping or The Sting. And like, that's really the show I like.
Yeah.
And this is not it. Or Parasite's Lost, which we discussed a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
And this isn't that, unfortunately. But look, I just, what can I say? Like, I do get why people like it. This just isn't why I watch this show personally. That's all I guess. That's all I really got to share about that. Actually.
Yeah, it probably has more in line with Parasite's Lost than the rest of those like later season 3 episodes you mentioned. Because those ones are the sort of the sci-fi ones. That one is a sort of sci-fi mixed with like a sort of pulpy romance.
It's densely existential in a way which I don't think this is Fryrish, really.
No.
As I understand.
Not really. It's only the only reason why this really works so well is because Fry is such a lovable character.
Yeah.
If it was any other character, this story would be completely irrelevant, I think.
Yeah.
It's sort of hung on the fact that Fry is such a likable character, really.
Yeah, we're almost like along with the writers, he's going to go grave robber his brother, seemingly. Because we only have Fry's perspective on who's his brother's relationship, sort of the residue that it had on Yancey after Fry went missing / frozen. But that's all I have to share personally regarding this one. I don't know about yourself, but I'm happy to
I do agree. It's not the greatest episode ever, but you can understand why people sort of would flock to it. Though I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's like not Futurama. In tone, it is very Futurama in tone, in my mind at least.
Okay.
Like, something that's less Futurama is maybe like, and I do like the episode, but it's sort of a worse version of this in my mind, from I think the same season, where Leela's parents, that episode.
That's the early season 4.
Okay, but you get what I mean. That one feels a little less Futurama in its ending, and a bit more King of the Hill.
Maybe. I way prefer that episode. I think that's actually a really solid episode.
Oh, I like the episode itself. It's more just the sort of final conclusion montage. I don't mind it, but it doesn't feel like Futurama to me. That's where it sort of feels more like another show.
I think the build-up in that episode, like the story of Leela's parents, is really powerful.
And, that episode is a really good episode. I just more so mean when they go into that sort of... where they replicate this episode.
The ending is a bit... slightly disappointing in that respect. I agree, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of trying to hit the emotional highs of like this or like Jurassic Park or something, you know.
Jurassic Park wasn't. That's actually after.
That's a bit
Leo's
later.
Homeworld. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I guess well that's a case of them trying.
I'm pretty sure they aired some of them earlier. Like I didn't realize this till recently.
It's hard to know the order of the show.
Some episodes aired. Like if you go to wiki list of episodes in Wikipedia, some episodes in this in season 3 or 4 are airing in 2002 and some in 2003, and you're like, huh?
Yeah.
Like I don't. Yeah, it's different from the
broadcast run and the
production order. I guess.
Production run are two or different orders.
Well, production runs a bit. Well, from what I remember hearing on a commentary that Spanish Fry was actually the last episode made, and Devil's Hands actually finished before Spanish Fry.
Okay.
But I guess so the production order might be a bit different technically, but some odd respects. But obviously the order they intend for it to be shown and ordered in is the DVD. Obviously they had full control over that.
Yeah.
So they did that. So I tend to think of, because I think some people split season 1 into 2 and the first 2 seasons into like 3, and it's a bit of an unusual situation.
Yeah.
And but I go by the DVD orders. Maybe in streaming they've split it into like this sort of, I don't know what it's like on Disney Plus. You know what I mean?
Who knows?
People with Disney Plus.
I suppose.
Not myself. I'm still happy to close it here, I suppose.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone.